All right, man, let's do this. We got a lot going on right now. I'm Ashton Gene Lewis. This is not the Broke Boy Sports Podcast. This is the Challenge Notebook, episode 3 for season 39. It's called It's a Matter of Semantics. We're going to go through everything that happened in the episode for the challenge, my 6th favorite sport, and I'm going to react to it, kind of give my take on what I was thinking as the episode was going on. You tell me if we're aligned or if we're on just totally different planets when it comes down to it. I will give you a heads up for those of you who are familiar with the show. I got the cocaine nose today, which does not mean I've done cocaine. It means I have severe allergies that make it sound like I constantly do cocaine. I did take Zyrtec. I waited as long as I possibly could for it to kick in. Maybe it'll kick in halfway through this episode and I won't have to blow into a towel in a disgustingly loud noise. If I do, I'll take a little break. I've also been sneezing, and for those of you at home who are like, oh, you should dust your room, I dusted my room 2 weeks ago when I had a massive kind of allergy attack, one of the worst allergy days that we've had so far, but I will admit I have this constant tickle in the back of my nose like I'm going to sneeze. I'll be trying to mute it as much as possible because I know people hate the sound of me sneezing and snorting and all that kind of stuff like that. Everything that's coming out of my nose is a clear liquid, so it's a textbook allergies situation. Anyway, we got stuff to talk about right off rip. If you got a comment, there's 3 questions I wanted to make sure got answered. If you didn't see it in the description for the video, I'll read them off right now. Tell me in the comments who's getting eliminated next. If you haven't watched episode 4, which aired back to back with episode 3, I'm assuming that's because the final is an extra episode or whatever, or something like that. Who's top 3 most devious people in the house? Because for me right now, I got Jay Michelle, almost interchangeable order for those 3, and then Mariah, underrated portion of the devious group out there, because Mariah is 100% playing every side that she can possibly play, even when it comes down to eliminations. When we talk about episode 4, we'll talk about what happened in that one as well. Episode 4, 3, 2, and 1, Mariah has basically either been completely silent, or she's been helping both sides of both groups of people during the elimination so that she doesn't give away her hand, which, of course, as we all know, if you're on everybody's side, you're on nobody's side when it comes time to make tough and difficult decisions in the house. But we'll get to that when we get there, right? Mariah has not been even close to in trouble in any way, shape, or form. Who's coasting and who's dominating in the house so far? A couple of candidates for sure in terms of like coasting. I would not say Big T this year because she's already got an elimination win, which is super rare for her to be able to pull off an elimination win just in general. She's just not that kind of gal, you know what I mean? She's just not that kind of gal in terms of like, one, getting into elimination early, because a lot of people have this thing about Big T where they're just like, she's easy to eliminate at any given time, so there's no point in trying to get her out of the show first, right? She gets called out by somebody who thinks that they're better than her and Jessica, and she packs her up and sends her home. Very, very good showing from Big T. Don't know how many people are going to be trying to test her in the coming weeks. Doubt it'll be very many people overall because she's already got a dub. But we got a lot of stuff to talk about. The episode jam-packed. Same thing with episode 4. I liked episode 4 a lot as well. But we'll talk about that when we get to it. In case you're wondering, yes, I'm recording a completely separate video that covers all of episode 4 by itself because I did that for episodes 1 and 2 when I was behind, and I didn't want to break the trend or anything like that. So allow me to scroll all the way to the top of my notes, and we'll get it started here. Right off the rip. I don't know why sometimes Google Docs is amazing and sometimes it's so dumb. Anyway, we'll talk about the arrival right off rip. So episode 3 starts off just like all the episodes have this season, with the winner of the elimination returning. Chauncey has been eliminated by James. If you've not caught up to this point, this is about episode 3 of the season, so I just spoiled the ending of episode 2 for you. Sorry, that's what happens when you watch a reality TV show like The Challenge. Eventually you have to talk about who got eliminated, who didn't. Anyway, Chauncey Chauncey gets eliminated, and James comes back. For some reason, he's still opening his mouth and rambling about how he thought it was a dumb idea that Chauncey even called him down. Tons of bravado to go along with it. I just like to point out James won that elimination by 1 point. By one combination more than Chauncey did. It is 0% impressive what he did throughout the course of that one. So just keep that in mind. A lot of people really like opening their mouths and questioning the intelligence of Chauncey, who I don't know as a person, as a human being, but I find it really weird that nobody else questions the intelligence of anybody else on the show when it comes to the actions that they take. There's going to be a theme here. We'll talk about that a little bit later. They get back into the house. Everybody's hanging out. And apparently they cut to they're hanging out later that night. The pool apparently exists. And Mariah got the cheeks out. And James has eyes. Like he has functioning eyes. Many, some of us not so lucky, but a lot of us are. And Mariah's got the cheeks out and she's talking to James. She spends more time in the bed next to James's bed than she does in her own. It seems like for the next 2 episodes, she's hanging out. Feels an attraction to James as a human being. It says that he's her kind of guy. I don't know what that necessarily means, but she says that James is her kind of guy, and it's disappointing because she's still kind of she's not in a relationship, but she still hangs out with, she goes on dates with the sneaky snake. If you remember last season, her mom told her that Johnny Bananas is a sneaky snake and she needs to be careful around him. And looks like Mariah is got eyes for a guy who looks a little bit like Johnny Bananas, but probably is significantly younger, because I think the age gap is like 15 years or 11 years or something like that between Bananas and Mariah, because Mariah's in her 20s and Johnny's in his 40s, or he is 40 years old, I think, or just turned 40 this past season. And they've been hanging out doing all kinds of stuff like that. He's been like dropping funny tweets about like, oh man, you still got my Netflix password and all this kind of stuff like that, which, hey, what's a Netflix password between friends, especially now that they're going out here and making sure nobody can duplicate on those accounts. Anyway, that was away from the mic, out of respect for the people. James is back. Mariah's back. She's happy to see him. The house has seemingly, almost instantaneously in the episode, started to take aim at Raven, which is interesting because it's starting to come off like the thing a little bit. Little thing, There's not many people of color in this game, and there's not many black people in particular in this game. We're basically at a point where first episode, the smallest person gets eliminated. That's how sports work. Small people, unless they're like truly exceptional and beyond the ability to overcome their lack of size and all that kind of stuff like that, they typically get eliminated first. But facts are, she was in elimination versus a black woman. Now we have Chauncey, who had all of episode 2 where multiple people question his intelligence. He loses by 1 point and people are still calling him dumb, which is weird. I guess that means a lot about James. You know what I mean? Other part that goes with it, we got now episode 3 rolls around. Raven is in the crosshairs. Now, I will say this: Raven was in the crosshairs at the end of, or in the middle of episode 2, because they had beef with, the fact that Raven, who is canoodling, as people would say, Kylan came back and told everybody in the U.S. alliance, and we need to have a conversation about that, as the evidence is becoming like slightly overwhelming and it's kind of weird. But Kylan comes back snitching, right? That Kieran was told information from Raven about how Chauncey was going to pick a UK guy no matter what, and that they need to get ready and try and figure out some kind of way to counteract that. Basically gave away what the US's move was going to be, which, if you are truly an alliance within the US, hold on a second. I need to sneeze. I'm just going to play the music here real quick while I take care of my nose. That's live podcasting there for you, ladies and gentlemen. Had to take care of it on the fly. Hopefully it didn't disrupt your amusement. It is, like I said before, infinite tickle in the back of my nose like I'm going to sneeze, and it kind of sucks. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, I was talking about if the U.S. alliance was like a real thing that is to be thought to be real, right? Which I don't think it is. You would be trying to do everything in your power to stop Chauncey, even if you don't. And this is the thing, too. Olivia brought this up in episode 2, where she was just like, well, it doesn't matter if Chauncey is one of our numbers if we can't trust him. And it's like, well, Chauncey hasn't really given you a reason not to trust him. There's other people in your alliance that have given you, like, legit reason not to trust him, and Jay and Michelle. Olivia talks about how, like, Chauncey, like, didn't, like, said Horacio's name in elimination. It's just like, well, Jay and Michelle had like a direct hand in putting you like played against Jay and Michelle in elimination, and then the week before I think they put you guys in. You know what I mean? So it was one of those things. Or they put in Jordan and Anissa or something like that. But I mean, they were a part of getting you put into elimination multiple times last season. But for some reason, that doesn't matter. Very, very strange what does and does not matter when it comes to rationalizing who goes into elimination. Nonetheless, Raven gives information about the U.S.'s plan to the UK boys to basically muddy the waters, which is something the U.S. probably should have done from the jump. That they were like, hey, guess what? The plan is to like put a UK guy in no matter what, but because... or the plan is to put an international guy in no matter what, but because the actual alliances are not the U.S. versus international alliance, it is very clear that that's like a big smoke screen that people are using. It's not even girls and guys. It's like there are just gigantic alliances amongst these 24 people, and there are people lying. Like there's too many people who are in overlapping alliances that they can't be telling the truth every day they wake up. They're just lying to you. They are effectively lying to you every single day. And guess what? Raven's not in the cool kids club. And we'll talk about what happens to Raven as this episode goes on, because it's a little interesting who stands up for Raven later on in episode 3 and episode 4. But nonetheless, they're starting to lay the groundwork for trying to get rid of Raven and put her into elimination. Whether it be now or in a couple episodes later, depending upon who annoys who and all these kind of situations. But yeah, that was an obvious tactic by Raven to take information from the U.S. alliance and feed it to the UK alliance to get them to vote for each other. And guess what? It almost fucking worked. Like, it got James and it got Callum to vote for each other. And that's 2 less votes on Chauncey. And now, of course, it didn't work across the board for everybody else. Because everybody else ended up voting for Chauncey anyway, and he ended up going for a UK guy like he promised, right? It didn't work. The burn votes didn't work, all that kind of stuff like that. But it was an attempt at a great amount of loyalty from a person that they claim is so treacherous and can't be trusted. Interesting. She's legit being told she's a traitor for trying to help someone in her alliance, and Jay and Michelle, 2 of the most treacherous people in the house, are the ones like going around making sure everybody knows that Raven is the one who's like trying to, Raven is the one who's trying to make everything this, trying to make everything that. They're like trying to twist the knife in when she's already been stabbed, right? She's bleeding out, all that kind of stuff like that. Then we hard cut to Big T chopping it up. And when I say chopping it up, I mean like legitimately chopping it up on a board, because apparently Big T, in the time that she's been gone, is now a certified chef. Congratulations to her. We love to see a dynamic black woman going out there chasing her dream. She's a patisserie and a certified cook. So shout out to her. She cooked food for everybody at the house. Sorry. Anyway, excuse me on that one. Big T is back to doing something that is like a classic low man technique in the game. And I'm not trying to say she's like, and you can already tell I'm like trying to sneeze again. It kind of sucks. Anyway, if I sneeze into the microphone, please forgive me. Please forgive me, people of the internet. Anyway, the weird thing that goes down, Big T's a chef, right? She's out there chopping it up. They got challenge, by the way, they got challenge branded like spices and sauces that she's cooking it up with, and I find that hilarious. One, where's that in the merch store? You know what I mean? Challenge branded salt. Oh God. By the way, I'm sneezing and literally nothing's coming out. It's just air. Like, it's just literally trying to push the allergen out of my nose, and it sucks. Anyway, Big T's chopping it up. She cooks for everybody at the house. She cooks for everybody inside the house. This is a technique that I've seen on multiple reality shows that involve a house, but in particular, most famously for me personally, Big Brother season 19 that had the Mickey season. For those of you who are familiar with Big Brother, it's the season where, you know, it's heavily marred by just pure racism. Like Mickey, you can look at the order of eliminations on that season unless you haven't watched it before. The first 4 people eliminated are the only people of color in the entirety of the house. And then before, what is it? They have a guy who they had to warn multiple times in the diary entry room about being like viciously bullying, talking shit about people, he basically came out and said that he was gonna punch like a woman on the show in the face, which it's a CBS show. If you're not familiar with Big Brother, they have cameras rolling 24/7. People actually pay extra money to be able to watch on camera all the time, which is why if you ever watch Big Brother, they put as many towels as possible in front of the glass paned shower, and people like cover up in the shower and all that kind of stuff, because like there are people watching the cameras all the time. And there's a Reddit thread that is specifically for like, hey, here are the girls in the Big Brother house when they're naked inside, or when they're naked and they didn't, like, you know, they slipped up in front of the shower. It's still like, it's always really weird to me that they have a bathroom camera, but in the background you can always see people in the shower butt ass naked while everybody's in the bathroom. Obviously the bathroom's huge, and it's a way for them to force people to interact with each other, and it's also like a built-in way for people to hang out in the area and seem natural, seem normal, and like listen in on conversations about game and strategy and shit like that. Which is why when people go to the bathroom, they typically go with people that they're actually cool with, to make sure that like nobody is like listening in on their conversations. That's a discussion for another day. Big T cooks food for everybody else. I mentioned there's a season of Big Brother. There's a player in that Big Brother 19 season that her whole thing is like she knows she can't win any other competitions because Mickey has already got the top like 3 possible competitors that can win competitions on his side. And I actually want to say one of them is Ed, who's like in the challenge this season. And Ed gets like eliminated towards the end or something. He's like right before the final 4 or something like that. Anyway, it's a tactic that's like really like scraping the barrel for ways to get like positive points with people if that you can't be in an alliance with. So like you're like, she literally in the Big Brother show, the person I'm talking about, she becomes like a maid. Like she becomes a maid like for the entire house. Like she's like putting people's laundry in their room, she's cooking food, she's cleaning dishes, all this kind of shit. Like she's mixing up protein shakes. It's crazy the lengths that she's going to stay in this house. And I don't think any of it worked. Just like I don't think anything like this. Big T mentions it in the diary entry that she's doing it to get brownie points with people. Because she's just like, well, if I cook well enough, maybe they'll get me to stick around, or like they'll want me to stick around if it comes down to like a matter of semantics, if you will, about who's going to get picked left or right. It's interesting. It's an interesting approach. I understand why somebody would do it. It does have some kind of effect, some kind of cumulative effect over time. But for the most part, when it comes down to like my alliance member versus Big T, they're not going to be like, Big T can cook a mean ass steak, so no, she's staying and you're going. You know what I mean? It's a very small thing. Anyway, they had like I said before, Big T cooked a meal for everybody, and everybody loved it. Apparently, it looked like it was really good. I'm not even going to lie. Horniness is at an all-time high in the house, and Be honest with you, little early for the horniness, but I guess you got to get it in while the getting's good. We know for a fact that there's at least one relationship that forms after this show or during this show. It's Nerys and Horacio, which is interesting. Because, Olivia is so close to Nerys, and Nerys is a person that is really cool with Nelson, all this kind of stuff like that. Obviously, they want new stuff. They want new relationships like this to emerge because they have stars of their show that are aging, right? Like, they have stars that are in their 30s going towards their 40s, and I don't think personally that can prevent them from athletically performing really well, because all the guys and the gals who are older are actually like way more diligent about their physical conditioning, and they've been training longer than the younger people. And now the younger people, they're more likely to do something erratic, and they're more likely to do something stupid. The older people have established alliances, and it makes the show really predictable. And when there's enough of them in the show, there's never there's so many instances where the rookies, like the last 3 seasons, there's been so many instances where the rookies had the numbers advantage on the vets, and then the vets just were like, hey, so we don't have like numbers to be able to flip and vote against all the rookies, so we just convinced 2 rookies to be like, hey, do you want to sign up with the people who are going to win this game in the end, even though like our plan is eventually like going to involve voting against you, but as of now we won't vote against you or we won't vote you in. It's one of those things where it's like, bro, if all the rookies just banded together, something that Jay and Michelle that was one of the things that I liked about Jay and Michelle last season. They tried to get all the people who like didn't have an alliance to band together to go against the vets, and it just didn't work. The vets had their claws too deep into even the rookies that they were sending into elimination were coming back and still siding with the people who are sending them into elimination. And when you have idiots like that competing, you can't really do too much, you know what I mean? But yeah, like I was saying, horniness is all the way up. Raven's apparently been canoodling with Kieran, the fully tatted British dude that was like ex-military. Melissa and Kylan are been hanging out. We talked about them last episode. Michelle still hanging out with Callum. Callum still holding on to the secret about him having a whole ass girlfriend outside of the house. Michelle slowly but surely falling in love, soon to be betrayed, I'm assuming. It just so happens that Callum has nestled himself up to probably one of the most powerful women in the show politically, basically off of experience and her connection to people who already have been in the house and all that kind of stuff. Very convenient. Anyway, he's a big fan, and it just so happens to benefit him a lot to be very, very attracted to Melissa. The crew, by the way, they added in a gigantic hot tub that can fit all of the cast members in it. That's going to work really well, in the long run. That is a great addition. It's probably going to make people do weird stuff. It's also indoors, so it doesn't have to be one of those things where everybody's outside freezing, because they are in Croatia this season, and it probably is going to, create some situations, if you will. Speaking of situations, everybody's hanging out in the hot tub, having a good time. People are dancing. People are listening to music. People are drinking, as you would imagine. And at one point, Berna gets up at the end of the hot tub and she starts dancing. And Berna, if you guys don't know, she's actually like a real performer. Like, she does acrobatic. What is it? It's not ribbons. Ribbons is grounded. Anyway, she does acro performances and stuff like that. She truly is talented. Clearly, she makes a living doing it. She's dancing, having a good time, and she feels like when she looks out towards all the people that she's dancing in front of, and technically for, while she's trying to, show a friendlier side, a looser side of her, and Berna's not all serious all the time. Berna's a person that can be your friend. She's not getting the reception that she wants, which I think a lot of us have been there before. You put yourself out there, and you don't get a response, or you get a negative response, right? And you're just kind of like, well, that's the last time I do that. Berna gets upset. She confronts Melissa, who she thinks, I guess she narrowed in on Melissa being like the ringleader of the people who were making fun of her, even though the camera cut shows Melissa and Big T talking. The situation ends up with them outside the hot tub in a hallway, Melissa's got her back to the wall, and Berna's talking to her. She's surrounded by the entire cast, and they're basically standing there to make sure that Berna doesn't punch Melissa in the face, right? Berna confronts Melissa and calls her a bully. That triggers Melissa, who reveals her long past of viciously being bullied as a child. I can't imagine how wild it must be to be like an adult and know that so much of your life has been molded and influenced and damaged in a certain way by people just being mean to you for no reason or being mean to you for existing. And she gets called that monstrous word. Like, that word means a lot to her. That's interesting to me, right? That's interesting to me. So, yeah. They get into an argument. It seems like it's real one-sided. At first, it's Berna yelling at Melissa, and then it's Melissa yelling at Berna. Melissa's like getting into a repetitive cycle about "don't call me a bully, don't call me a bully, don't call me a bully." Berna gets upset, bucks at Melissa, and it backs Melissa up into the wall that she's standing behind. And honestly, kind of an intense situation. If you're Melissa, you're surrounded by all the cast members and no telling how you feel towards everybody, right? You're being like, it's almost like similar to a bullying situation, if you will, that you see in movies where it's like, oh man, there's like no escape from me. I'm stuck in this hallway. I don't know if like she was standing in front of one of the doors or something like that, but it definitely felt like Melissa had her back to a wall that did not go anywhere. And then she gets confronted and bumped by Berna and pushed backwards, right? They separate them. They're trying to say like, oh, she didn't do anything because they don't want Berna to get sent home, which means that there's people still looking out for Berna when it's all said and done. And there's a couple of people who spoke up in the diary room saying they're like, yeah, Berna's like a person that I talk to all the time. Apparently Berna be talking to a lot of people, even though they don't show it on camera. And according to Berna, she ain't got no friends. So it's a little tough. I'm trying to figure out which one is which. You know what I mean? Maybe it's somewhere in between. I guess if you talk to 6 people in the house and it's 24 or 23 people minus yourself in total that you can talk to, that's not talking to very many people, right? Anyway, it turns into a whole situation. She leaves, and in the process of leaving, she smashes one of the lamps in the house. I don't know. I guess they didn't catch it on camera, so they like kind of, you kind of think that maybe Berna like punched it or threw it or something like that, and it's just broken on top of the counter. She walks outside, Emmanuel talks to her, and Emmanuel, who has a similar background to Berna, they kind of have like a conversation that she can actually relate to and she feels comfortable having about like what the situation is. And there starts to be like a hint of maybe Berna feels like the tag of bully is something that you give to somebody and it's permanent, as opposed to like a finite situation where she felt bullied in that situation, right? That is interesting. I'll say that much. Then it's time to do the daily, baby. It's time to do the daily. So we start off at the top. The daily is called the control. It's a part of the control level. It's called Control Tower. Now, up until this point, there's been 0 challenges won by the complete team that starts off with every person in the house, right? So they've been slowly eliminating people. At this point, it's episode 3, so there's 2 people who have been eliminated so far, and that means that there's only 22 people in the huddle talking back and forth. And for whatever you have to say, based off what I've seen in the first 2 team challenges, that the 2 less people talking goes a long way for a lot of these situations. Yes, that was pure liquid that came out. Anyway, that's always interesting. Control Tower is a relatively simple game, although it does have some complex parts to it. So there are 8 buggies, ATV buggies, basically, and on their roofs they have numbers 1 through 8. So there's buggy 1 that has a number 1 on it, and in the middle of a circular track, really it's a square track. In the middle of this rectangular track that has been built, there are orders of operation. So there's a minus, there's a plus, the division, multiplication, all that kind of stuff like that. And you're wondering, like, what the hell is this? The buggies need to be arranged to solve an equation that is at a puzzle station. Only 2 people can be at the puzzle station solving. 4 people get to be in the control tower that is, I want to say, like 15, 20 feet above the rectangular track, while each buggy will have 2 players in each one of those. And there's a person at the top of the control tower with a headset and a microphone that is communicating via the loudspeakers to all the other cars on the track as to where they need to go to make sure that the equation is set up correctly and they get points for it. They can move the orders of operations to match up with the equations that are on the board, but they can't like the equation is blank or there's 2 spaces, so there's like a space for one number and a space for another number. There's a multiplication sign, space for one number, space for another number, plus space for another number. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. They're moving them around to complete the equation so that the solution is correct. So they'll give you the answer. They'll give you one number on the equation, and then the answer, it'll be like 56. And they send Kylan and Ed. Ed is an engineer. I think it's electrical engineer. So obviously numbers are his thing, right? Like tons of math involved with being an engineer on a regular basis, especially solving equations and utilization of equations as well. Kylan is apparently just a smart guy. I don't know what Kylan does for his professional life or anything like that. I know he was previously on Big Brother, but apparently he's really good with numbers. And it comes off that way a little bit later on at the end of episode 4. But yeah, that's what the whole challenge is. Michelle is the person that's been given the headset to speak to everyone. She talks about how she doesn't want to have it because she doesn't enjoy the fact that she's now been put in the spotlight and could potentially be targeted for elimination if things do not go well. That's a legit concern to be had. But if you align all the cars correctly and you solve all 5 equations, they add $50,000 to the winner's pot. Remember, there's only one winner at the end of this season, so the $1 million prize, which is usually divided up between the 2 winners, the 2 team winners or whatever, and then money given out to each person or whatever. Hopefully they keep that tradition alive. They usually, if you win the main season of the challenge, they give out like money to each person that finished the final, right? And it's usually only 4 people sometimes, or it's usually only 8 people sometimes. It's really cool. It's a good tradition to set, and it's been continued, I want to say, for 3 seasons in a row now. So hopefully they keep it up because it is brutal to go and just even do the final. Like, the final is extremely difficult, especially with some of the stuff that they had the guys do back in the day, were like staying up all night kind of deal, and then running running a half marathon type of deal. Anyway, that's what goes down for the daily. Now, here's the actual challenge. The challenge section is where we actually talk about what the challenge of completing this is. And it's relatively simple. Math. A massive challenge for me personally. Massive hurdle to every time math is involved. Massive hurdle for me personally. The sliding tiles problem. Some of us have played this as a child's game. It's one of those games where you're trying to get one block to slide into like a bunch of different slots so that you can get this, like, it's a group of tiles, and each one is all one color, and then there's one tile that's a different color, and your objective is to be able to slide the tile out of the play area and be like, I completed the puzzle type of deal. This is the similar situation in the sense that the buggies can only go one way around the track. The lanes are not wide enough for people to be able to like drive around each other and then drive into the spots. So people have to you have to work on sliding the cars into the right position, either going forward or reverse, or giving them enough space to be able to reverse into their different spots and all that kind of stuff like that. It takes a lot of coordination and also a lot of just mental power to understand how to organize all these people. Once again, communication. It's amazing the level of communication these guys have when one person is talking. Usually it's 21 people. There's a bunch of people who are just like, I will not interact with a person who claims to be the leader that is not me, which is fantastic for trying to win a team objective, which, by the way, speaking of winning, they actually do it for the first time. Everybody wins because it's a team challenge. this is a dub for the team. There's 22 people. They get the $50,000. I think they finished with like 5 minutes to spare or something like that, which in a challenge like this is kind of cutting it close or whatever. But they figure it out after they even had to tag Kylan out and tag in Jay to go and solve one of the equations, but they figured it out. They went out there, they did the thing, they did the math. Luckily for them, they got some pretty smart guys who were a part of the crew out there, if you will. That is how it all shook out when it was all said and done. We move on to everything else that is going on, which is interesting. Now it's time to start talking about everything that happens afterwards. Everybody comes back to the house after the challenge. They're hyped up because they won a bunch of money and all that kind of stuff like that. They won the team challenge for the first time this entire season, and they won the maximum amount of money you could win. They won like $6,000 from the first challenge, from the challenge in episode 2. Now the question starts to become, oh man, we passed the challenge, so there's nobody to like blame because we got the money. And it was like it was one of those like we got the maximum amount of money, so technically everybody who was in a position to do something to win that challenge absolutely killed it. And then all the other people who were like the minor positions or whatever, they're in whatever situation you want them to be in. Nobody did anything wrong, so there's nobody to blame for how it did and did not work. So now it comes down to the semantics, as you can guess, of whether or not you like a person, who you do like, who's not in your alliance, who's got the most connections, who's got the best political game. And this is why actually being cool with people is massively important, because you never know when you're going to be stuck in one of these type of situations in the challenge where your fate is dependent upon not how you performed in the challenges, but how you connect with people, how much respect people have for you as a person, and who you have promises with and for. So 2 names pop up. Tell me if you're surprised or not. Berna and Raven have their names pop up, and it's pretty obvious, right? Like nobody's surprised about this. Berna has been annoying somewhat to everybody from the jump. Basically from the selection of rooms, Berna has been kind of dealing with a small case of house madness, which is probably a direct explanation for why she overreacted when nobody was like reacting the way she said. That people were like laughing and like looking at her laughing and all this kind of stuff like that. People are drinking. You never know why people are laughing. People are drinking and they're in a hot tub, and if you've ever been that person, you know exactly what I'm talking about. People get weird when they're warm and there's alcohol in their system. So when they're too warm and there's alcohol in their system, people get weird. And there's nothing, you gotta be spatially aware of that kind of stuff, right? Berna took it personally, and quite frankly, it could have been personally, and Melissa just overreacted to kind of like scurry it under the rug. That I would also believe. People have done devious things like that before on the show to basically exacerbate people's house madness. They used to do it to Michelle a lot in her first 2 seasons, where they're like, are you gonna say my name? And basically Michelle's like super paranoid all the time, and it makes her rise up on people's radar of names to say because she's being annoying about people potentially saying her name. So the 2, do I have it written correctly? I think I have it on here. Yeah, so we have deliberation, and I'll talk about it here. I wrote some notes about the deliberation for this one. Raven speaks up, and she's basically the first person who has been like the lead name coming into deliberation, and she didn't make a fool of herself. James tried to paint it off like she was being super boring and all this kind of stuff like that. I'm going to tell you this right now. James is already annoying the shit out of me. I can't stand dudes that won't admit that they played I can't stand dudes that will never give credit to their opponents. The whole elimination thing with Chauncey still doesn't sit right with me, in terms of like, hey man, you literally almost got sent home and you're acting like you dominated Chauncey, and you didn't. Chauncey was cooking your ass. If there was another round, and I hate to be like the what if guy, but if there's another round of that challenge, you're going home, bro. And it's not even a question, right? His plan worked out. When it was all said and done. This is right. Anyway, Raven speaks up. Berna speaks up about potentially feeling better and acting better and getting better, interacting with others and stuff like that, which, you don't want to do while you're in the house. You want to just show up and be a person that people find pleasant to hang around and everything like that. So, Nerys of season 38 fame speaks up on behalf of Raven because Nerys is the only person talking some goddamn sense. Mainly because Nerys is an interesting character, and this is what I like. She's an interesting person. This is what I like about Nerys. So she is in an alliance with the people from season 38. Olivia doesn't like Raven. Nerys doesn't like Raven, but they're still in an alliance together because she knows where she stands with Raven, which is something you cannot say about everybody else in the house. Raven is clearly come into this game and she's trying to put behind everything that happened in season 38, which I appreciate. There's a lot of people who carry a lot of baggage from previous seasons into the following one, and it sets them up for failure. Raven's trying to go out here striking on her own. She's trying to make sure that you understand she's a strong, independent woman. This lady is in Columbia. She going to Columbia College. You know what I mean? Ivy League, right? And she don't want you thinking she just the lady who got hung up on some dude that lied to her, right? Lied to her face multiple times over, all this kind of stuff like that. It is very clear last season that Johnny was like lying to Raven either before and during the show about what their relationship was. And then when they got into like situations where like people called him on it, or people outside of their conversations called him on it, he would act like, oh, I don't even know that lady. I don't even know her. You know what I mean? I just picked some random lady off the street to come onto the show with, right? And it may be part of the reason that he's not in this season. Who knows? Nerys actually makes a push to get votes thrown at Berna in deliberation, because she basically was just like, Berna's annoying. And y'all know she is. There's no reason for you to go at Raven, because Raven, unlike a lot of other people in the house so far, was actually showing loyalty to somebody that was in our alliance. She went to Team UK to muddy the waters and split the votes to save one of not only her alliance members, but a member of the Guys Alliance and the US Alliance. Which I guess doesn't matter because Chauncey's not that much of a part of the alliance, right? He's outside looking in. He's convenient. He's used when he's convenient, right? If Chauncey won, he'd be like the top dog in the alliance. But because a lot of people don't perceive him as a threat, which I find to be hilarious, he's not getting the love that he should. He's not getting the help from his alliance members. They're only taking from him, right? That happens all the time in these shows. People find out in the worst ways possible that all the things that people said to them are not as they seem. Nerys, like I said before, was pushing votes for Berna. But yeah, because like at this point where we're sitting right now, episode 2 and episode 3, this will be back-to-back members of the so-called fake US alliance that are getting sent into elimination, that are the number one name and are going to get the most votes and getting sent into elimination. That's what's going down right here. And that's what everybody's signing up for. Which is weird, because why would you continue to eliminate your own alliance members if you actually didn't have an alliance? And on that note, I'm going to take a snot break, and I'll be right back. All right. Sure, that was a ton of fun for everybody, including myself. Thanks for everybody who's been remaining patient with me about this whole allergies thing. I took a Zyrtec, and I'm just thankful that I'm not passed out on this stream, to be honest with you. That was on the table. I start the stream, 30 minutes into it, all my energy's gone. I do not react well to allergy medicine, in particular Benadryl. So if you've ever seen me slumped over somewhere, it's because I've taken Benadryl. I don't even really drink alcohol like that anymore, man. It's so weird. 31 is a strange time, especially when you're a broke boy like me. Anyway, we go back to everything that's going on here. Like I said before, Nerys showing like a big brain play, able to look beyond what I'm assuming is still beef that lies between her and Raven. To defend Raven, to prevent her from being in a situation where she ends up going home. And to put up Berna, somebody who probably does not help Nerys in any way, shape, or form, with her remaining in the house, other than like being annoying, because apparently that argument with her and Melissa happened in like the middle of the night, and there were people who were already asleep that got woken up because of how they were yelling back and forth with each other, which I'm sure is always fun when you're in a house at 2:00 in the morning and somebody's yelling and screaming at you. As a person who used to live in a house that was full of people, can relate. Super fucking annoying. Anyway, the turn up happens in this one, and they're chopping up the wood to burn Raven at the stake. Let's be real, guys. Like I said before, they're chopping up the wood to burn Raven at the stake, and then they start kind of, they turn the cameras around and look at other people, right? That is an interesting setup that they got going on there, right? This is where I'm at this point in the episode. I'm kind of like, hey, I don't think this U.S. and Internationals Alliance thing is real. I think this is just all a smokescreen to trick a bunch of people into doing things together that benefit a smaller alliance by claiming that every move is being made to protect the U.S. from the Internationals, even though there's a lot of things that are contradictory to that. Michelle is really into Callum. We've mentioned this before. Callum has a girlfriend that he has told "I love you" to on diary entries, right? Jay seems to be concerned since he believes that Callum is the mastermind of the Internationals Alliance. I do not believe such things. I think Callum tries to create as much chaos as he possibly can by saying super disrespectful things during deliberation, and then during the meeting right before challenges, because he knows that he feels secure in his alliance. By the way, just like to point out, the Internationals so far, their alliance seems rock solid because the U.S. is tearing itself apart from the inside. Does that sound familiar? Sounds like War of the Worlds. Sounds like War of the Worlds 1 and 2, my guys. Remember that one time they voted out their own alliance, like on War of the Worlds 2, where they voted out CT, their own alliance guy, and then he won the elimination he voted him into, and then he went to Team UK, and then they ended up winning the whole thing. Fun. Jay seems to be really concerned, like I said, about Callum. Michelle thinks it is lingering emotions for Michelle. Jay has mentioned before that every time he tries to go and talk to Michelle, Callum is around, and he doesn't like that, which makes sense, because if there's ever real ride or dies, like they were literally ride or dies a year ago, so they're really close, not like relationship-wise, even though it felt like their relationship was still going on last season. And Michelle was like, he needs to get over it. I'm trying to live my life. He needs to live his life. Great response, Michelle. Great, flawless response. So let's talk about the elimination. We already saw the votes and how it all shook out, right? So we got Berna and Raven, the potential votes to come in. There are, as I've broken down here on the right-hand side, a bunch of people. Oh, this is the plot that thickens as this whole thing shakes out. All the gals decide they're going to give up the power to choose who goes into elimination and put it on the dudes to pick somebody. And in the process of doing that, they raise the alarm of one Corey L. as to whether or not a male elimination is on the table, and they're using the burn vote thing to put votes on dudes, because they can be like, oh, we're just doing burn votes, and then all of a sudden they've got 12 votes on one guy, and the guy goes into elimination, and the ladies win. So I don't get why they let the cast basically decide the first 3 eliminations, what gender the elimination is gonna be. They let the cast decide that, and I found that kind of weird. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Anyway, Raven goes into this situation. So there's votes getting tossed around. I didn't write down all the names that were listed because why? They're burn votes and none of them tallied up to anything. The couple of votes that did tally up to stuff were the 12 votes that went on Raven from all the guys. So none of the girls, because they, in their minds, I think they were all trying to avoid being selected by Raven, right? And to go into elimination. And so they didn't say her name. They also thought, like, whoever Raven picks, she's probably going to beat in some way, shape, or form. Because in their minds, they're like, if Raven gets put down into elimination, there's these 3 girls that are on the list, Big T, Huhui, and Zara, that they're pretty sure that Raven can take out in almost any type of activity that they put her up against. And they were like, I'm not trying to be the target, right? Because Raven doesn't have an allegiance in their eyes, which I guess should be like a big red flag to Raven. There's one person that was looking out for you, and then all the other ladies were not, right? Those people are trying to avoid the potential of becoming your true enemy. They want you to think that every girl is against you, as opposed to just like one in particular. So it makes it easier for everybody to be a target, because like you're less likely to hit. Like if everybody is your enemy and there's 12 or there's 11 enemies or something like that, the chances of, for self-preservation, the chances of you getting selected are 1 in 11. A lot lower than if 5 ladies vote for Raven, all the dudes vote for Raven, and then the other 6 ladies that don't vote for Raven vote for somebody else. Those 5 ladies that voted for Raven get put on the crosshairs, and they're trying to avoid that, or they're trying to make it as wide an array of people as possible so that it reduces the chances of, I'm assuming, the head honcho ladies from being selected. So interesting choice. The guys did not like the fact that the girls were all burn voting, because it's a way to avoid responsibility in the show, and especially when you actively know it's not a blindside. A good setup for a blindside is to fake a burn vote and then have the people who are going to vote for your blindside scattered throughout the votes, and so it slowly tallies up kind of deal. And everybody can make BS excuses. Whereas, like, you put the first 5 people on the line and they all vote for one person, the blindside doesn't work necessarily. Whatever. The elimination. This one is everybody votes for Raven. Raven walks down. Then they cut to a diary entry where Colleen, who I'm assuming because we're 3 episodes in, you forgot she was on this show, just how she wants you to. This is Colleen, who pretends that she does not speak English well. And this is Colleen, who literally won a show that is about deception, The Mole Germany, and she calls Raven shady. Once again, really weird, coming from literally the mole winner of Germany, and one of the most devious people in this entire house. Colleen is coasting, just like she did last season, coasting all the way, and probably at some point during the midpoint of the season, she's going to get called down into the sand and they go send her home. There is a very small percentage chance that Colleen is going to win anything, even though she's probably got like the most muscle definition out of any of the ladies in the house. But facts are facts. Her plan is like the worst thing possible for production. Her plan is to blend in with everybody else and not, like, people just forget that she's there, I'm assuming, at some point. Anyway, it's time for Raven to call out who she wants to come down there in the sand and put up their bed in the house and see who gets to come back. Raven calls out Huhui, who, if you're not familiar with, she was on the Challenge World Championships. She was also on She was on the Challenge World Championship. She was on the Challenge UK, if I'm not mistaken, as well. The elimination that they participate in is actually one that I really personally enjoy. So I loved watching this elimination because it had a couple of things that combined together. Hopefully they let the guys do this a little bit later on too, in some way, shape, or form. The elimination is called Dirty Deeds. There's a pile of sand, not too high, but a pile of sand in the middle of the arena. There's a roped area around it, a rope circle around this pile of sand. Both competitors are running towards the middle. They dig into the pile of sand. They're looking for an object to pull out of the sand and run it to their own bin on the opposite side of where they started off at. And you are allowed to make full contact with the person within the realm of the circle. And the circle's like pretty big. You're allowed to make contact with that person, and then basically you can jack them for the object that they dig out of the ground, right? And score it. This one, and it's the best out of the rounds of 3, so when you watch it back, they're going to show you, and this actually threw me off, they're going to show you Raven and Huhui both getting 1 point, and it does not end the round, because it's 3 rounds of 3, but inside the round, there are 3 objects. So you have to get 2 of the objects to win, right? To get the point for winning the round. It took me a second to figure that out. We literally just talked about how bad at math I am. So, the first of the 2 objects in that round wins that round. This one, it starts off a little close. Huhui gets 1 point on the board because Raven's not thinking, and she's letting Huhui pick up objects without being close enough to actually be able to contest her. She's digging up more sand, which helps Huhui in some way, shape, or form. She's digging up more sand on the opposite side of the mound, but on the off chance that Huhui's just randomly digging in the spot where the object is, Raven is literally on the opposite side of a giant sand mound, and so if Huhui gets one, takes off and runs, Raven has no chance to tackle her. Like, the speed difference is not major between the 2 of them, so when you get a head start, like a mound of sand plus like a couple of steps or whatever, it's over. That's how Huhui wins like the first round. And then rounds 2 and 3 are clean sweeps because Raven just starts digging right next to Huhui. Really, Raven could have watched Huhui dig into the sand and just stared at her the whole time. And as soon as she touches something or she starts acting funny, tackle her down into the sand, jack the object, and run away. Which is essentially what she did. Except Raven was like, I'm going to dig myself, but I'm going to dig right next to Huhui, literally shoulder to shoulder with her. And she mollywops her in this elimination because she's bigger, faster, and stronger. That's how the challenge go, baby. That's how I go. All that kind of stuff like that. I thought it was a good challenge. I think it should come back. It is it comes off like a more intelligent version of Hall Brawl. There are some other instances that there have been eliminations similar to this in the history of the challenge. They need to bring more of these back. I really like I really like how it all shook out, obviously because I'm rooting for Raven because she seems to be the underdog in these situations. People act like Raven's a goddamn devil or something like that, and when in actuality it seems like that loyalty that everybody's always talking about in the show, the only thing that she did wrong was pick the wrong person to be loyal to, right? But nonetheless, she was loyal to her friend all the way down to the end to where he got sent home, right? Which a lot of people cannot say. Even when she had the opportunity to throw one of the many votes that were cast in that elimination on Chonsei, she chose not to. She chose to make sure that all the way to the end, Raven wanted Chauncey to know, I got you all the way to the end. Even if my one vote doesn't matter, that one vote for me, not going on you. Even if it doesn't matter. It could be 23 votes on you. That one vote will never be from me. So, or 22 votes. Anyway, that ends. And then, of course, TJ does what he's done the last 2 episodes. He teases the people, tickles their palate with the concept that chaos is just around the corner. And it is. The clock now reads like 2 days and 6 hours or something at the end of this episode, which I don't know like how time is passing or like what day, like whose days we're counting. Is it my days, like my real time days or whatever? But this is one of two episodes that premiere back to back. I don't watch the episodes live, so I didn't know there was going to be two episodes tonight. As a matter of fact, after this podcast, I'm driving to my girlfriend's house to watch these episodes with her. Yes, I am that whack. Because I love the challenge that much, and I love watching it with my girlfriend because she makes it that much better. Yep, I'm that guy. The overall episode was interesting. Once again, the big takeaway for me is like the U.S. international thing is bullshit. I don't believe that, and even after episode 4, I've watched episode 4 already. Still don't believe it. It's not real. It's and you as a person sitting at home, you shouldn't believe it. Don't let them trick you. Hopefully, when I come back for the recap of episode 4, my nose will be less runny because the Zyrtec will have kicked in. But until that moment arises, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. Like I said before, don't forget, I got 3 questions for you. Make sure you put them in the comments. You let me know what you think. I want to hear about it. I want to hear from you. Who are the 3 most devious people in the house? Who's coasting? Who's dominating in the house so far? And what was the third one? Wait, I forgot what the third one was. I'm sorry. Hold on. Let me look at it real quick in the description of the podcast. Who's eliminated next, obviously. Who's next up on the chopping block, in your opinion? Hit me up on Twitter, FB_playbook. I talk about the challenge on both of my accounts, FB_playbook, and then at the Ashton J. But, you know, I want the podcast that's gotten a lot of followers to keep getting more followers, even though Twitter is very clearly now become bot homeland America, whatever, bot territory. They're very clearly like paying for bots. It's really weird. Anyway, I'm out. I'll be back in a little bit. I gotta change the graphics real quick, and I'll be doing my recap of episode 4 right here on the Broke Boys Sports Podcast YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. All right, bye.